Good morning, everybody. I hope you've had a fantastic day yesterday and that you're joining us this morning, enjoying a little bit of sunshine. Perhaps you got up a little bit early at 8:30 and joined the hashtag breakfast birdwatch with the RSPB. Out of the window today, I think I've seen blue tit, a couple of great tits, seen some good stuff this morning. We've had a great spotted woodpecker drumming away.
Yeah.
So there's lots of stuff to add onto the list to send into them, isn't there?
Certainly is. There certainly is. And today we've got some very special guests coming up for you. Iolo Williams is going to be joining us, and also Jim Moir, aka Vic Reeves, showing you some of his extraordinary bird art. Now, yesterday, Megan was showing you what I think is one of the best publications that you can get if you're into British birds, put out by the BTO, here, Bird Table magazine. They also publish BTO News, a little bit more scientific, obviously not just focusing on our garden birds, and this comes out 4 times a year. These publications are excellent, and we were urging you to join the BTO yesterday. Even more of a reason to do so this morning. For the last 25 years, the BTO have been conducting their garden bird watch survey. Basically, you look at all the birds that you see in your garden for a week, and then you upload them to their website, not just birds, but mammals and other animals too. And all of this has been collated and put together to give us a far better picture of the birds in our garden. And that's what Megan was talking about. The published results were in this magazine. Now, normally, that costs £17 a year. Now, remember, the BTO is a charity, so that £17 is going to their work. It's not money they're sticking in their pocket. But for this period of self-isolation, the BTO have very generously said they're going to waive all the fees for a year. So if you sign up to the Garden Birdwatch, you'll get access to their online recording system, a regular e-newsletter with information about the recording and, of course, identifying the species that you might see. But perhaps, best of all, access to the BTO's team of wildlife experts to answer your questions. And when it comes to wildlife experts, let me tell you, there are no finer than those that are at the BTO. Some fantastic staff there with an enormous wealth of knowledge. And you can get all of this done by going to bto.org/GBW, Garden Bird Watch. So if you are self-isolating birding and you're joining in with the Breakfast Bird Watch, why not actually make that data count by sending it into the BTO? And you can think about joining at the same time. They also occasionally publish books. Now, typically, they're scientific treatises. So they would be the Atlas of British breeding birds and wintering birds, Migration Atlas, that sort of thing. But recently, they teamed up with a fantastically inventive man, Kit Jewett, and they produced this book, Red 67. And this is a collection of works which look at the 67 red listed species that live in the UK. So they asked a great range of people to contribute, firstly, a short essay, and they range from being an aesthetic response, a bit poetic, to something which is telling you something fascinating scientifically about the bird. They equally then asked 67 artists to contribute work for the book too. I was very flattered to be asked. I chose the long-tailed duck. I did a drawing of the long-tailed duck there, and I wrote a little essay about it. Now, my drawing was done with household paints in about 5 minutes, because I left it to the last minute and was getting told off by the BTO. I have to tell you, there is some extremely fine artwork in this book, and some very, very beautiful essays. I better not pick one. No, of course I will. I'm not like that. Right, let's just see what's my favourite one. I can see if I can find. Here we are. Look at this one. This is really, really nice. Some fantastic artwork in here. Red 67, and of course, again, the monies raised from selling the book go to the charity to help conserve those 67 red listed species. Top work from the BTO.
Fantastic. What a fantastic project to keep us busy and keep our minds active and engaged as well, and learning new information about wildlife. Great job.
Indeed, indeed. Okay, we better start with Skull of the Day, Megs.
We better
Today, got the brute. The brute of a skull. Look at this. Now there. Look at that.
That is a skull with some power, isn't it?
That is a formidable piece of anatomical architecture. Avian anatomical architecture. Look at that bill. It's huge. The bill is clearly the most significant part of this animal. It comes to looking at the skull. That's the diagnostic things. But I would also draw your attention to the back of the skull, in particular the shape and form of the bone on the back there. Now, these birds can be found all around the northern hemisphere on both sides of the Atlantic. They're actually doing rather well in the UK at the moment. Most of their colonies are increasing when some of their other species that share their space are decreasing. But if you are watching from overseas, I can also tell you that they are common in the southern hemisphere too, in certain places. So a bird with a global success and a skull. I mean, honestly, you wouldn't pick one of these out on a Friday night, would you? You certainly
Rather
wouldn't.
not.
That is sensational. So get your answers in on our Facebook page and Twitter, and we'll see who's got that right at the end of the program.
Yeah, brilliant. So now on to a clip that was sent in to our Self-Isolating Bird Club. This was sent in by Ben Wadhams, who is a wildlife artist. He shared this most amazing clip of him drawing a kingfisher. Take a look at this.
Hi, I'm Ben Wadhams. I'm a wildlife artist, and today I'm going to be painting a kingfisher.
Just exquisite. When I first saw that, I couldn't believe that is a painting. I mean, what brought that image to life for me is, you know, it was about, I think, 20 seconds towards the end where he put the light shading onto the breast and the top of the bill of that bird, and it just brought it to life. Isn't it stunning?
I know, it's amazing. When it started, I sort of thought, God, this doesn't look much, you know, because it was just the sketch that you'd done on that background with the and then but towards the end, as you say, when you put the finishing touches on, it really came to life. And a great idea as well, using that time lapse, I have to say.
Yeah, great painting, Ben. Brilliant.
Fantastic. Now, as you know, we've now advanced our lo-fi technology to be able to include guests on our little morning broadcast, and I'm very pleased today to welcome one of the best naturalists that I've ever met, a man who is genuinely passionate about wildlife and has been all of his life. He's got a wealth of knowledge. There's only one unfortunate thing about his existence, really, and that is that he's Welsh. Not only that he's Welsh, but he's very proud of being Welsh. That's the unfortunate thing. Nothing wrong with being Welsh. No, it's just that he goes on. You know, he just goes on about it all the time, particularly when the rugby starts.
Well, I don't mind a bit of rugby.
No, I know. But he gloats on the fact that the Welsh are rather triumphant and skillful in that field. He is the one and only wonderfully Welsh, Mr. Iolo Williams. Good morning, Iolo.
Bore da, Chris. Bore da, Megan. How are you both?
We're good, thank you.
It's lovely to see you, and it's fantastic to have the invitation to be on here. Thank you very much indeed. And of course, you run on British Summer Time, on Greenwich Mean Time. We are still here in Mid Wales running on Central Sheep Time, which is about 20 years behind you. So I tell you what, it's been a fabulous morning. I got up early this morning, got out and about here at about 6 o'clock, and I've seen some really cool birds so far. Just as I was waiting to come on, I had a raven go over. I could hear the foof, 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 foof noise the wings make as it goes overhead. And then about an hour and a half ago maybe, I had a female peregrine go over as well. So some cracking birds this morning. But the funny thing up here is I'm on the edge of the Severn Valley in Montgomeryshire in Mid Wales, and we're in something of a hollow here because spring here, looking at around you there, I reckon spring here is probably 2 to 3 weeks behind you. We've had, of course, a very, very wet winter all the way through December, January, February. And since then, it's been pretty cold. It really has. The temperature the last 2 weeks has plummeted here. and that has arrested leaf development here. And that's had a knock-on effect on all kinds of wildlife. I've been watching you through the week and extolling the virtues of spring and all the spring flowers. Well, yeah, they are out here. We've had some really good show of lesser celandine, particularly. That's at its best now, really. And they've got a wonderful Welsh name. And I know I hark on about being Welsh, Chris, but the thing about the Welsh is we've got great names for our wildlife. And for the lesser celandine, this lovely yellow flower that opens up now, the Welsh name for that is Llygad Ebrill, the Eye of April. And that gives you some clue as to what's happened to spring. You know, with climate change and everything else, spring has got earlier and earlier and earlier. And that name tells you that if you go back 50, 60, maybe 100 years, most of them would open out in early April. Now, of course, lesser celandine, even up here with us, they're out often late February, early March. Most of them are out, you know, and certainly by the end of March, early April, as we are now, then they're all out and they're starting to go over a little bit. So obviously things are changing. Now, I have got an extra quiz for the viewers this morning. I want you to try and identify this. If I hold it up by my face, you'll get some indication of the size of it. What I will say is it's not British. It doesn't belong to a British creature at all. It's a marine creature, and this looks a little bit like a letter opener. I think we got some photos to show you. I'm not the world's best photographer, not by any means, but it looks a bit like a letter opener. It's maybe, how long is that? That is what, maybe 8-9 centimeters, was that 5 inches long? It's quite thin. And what's indicative is all along the edges here, you have these barbs, these vicious looking barbs. If I run my finger down that way, that's fine on both sides. If I run it the other way, it really does. It's like a saw. It's like an edge all the way along on both sides. Okay, so in maybe 10-15 minutes time, I will tell you what that is. But it's from a marine creature, and it's not a UK creature. So it's a difficult one. I know one or two of you will get it, but it's a difficult one. And Chris, I've got a special one for you as well. This is for you. Okay, this is a bird I regularly see commuting over here. So I want to know what that is, Chris, okay? Just as you put on your glasses, I'm going to take that down. There you go. That's all you're getting, mate. That's all you're getting. I want to know what that bird is. And as I say, I will come back to those two at the end and explain what they both are. Now, you mentioned, as I said earlier, you mentioned early flowers, Chris, and it's been a really good show for primroses up here as well. I've got on my lawn, it's kind of a wild lawn now. I've hardly touched it for probably the last 10 years or so, and it's been lovely watching it develop, watching primroses come through on the lawn first of all. Also cuckoo flowers starting to come through now, just beginning to emerge here. And I was out and about last week looking at all of these wild spring flowers, and I saw this. I think we've got a video now that I can show you of a bee fly. And I know you've mentioned these the other day as well, and these are fabulous little things. I watched it. I must have watched it for about 5 minutes or more, just buzzing along, hovering along, putting its long proboscis right into these flowers. And this is the dark-bordered bee fly. It's an absolute beauty. This is the one that we tend to see up here, the dark-bordered, or it's also called the large bee fly. This is the kind of commonest one. And at the moment in my garden, it's feeding on primrose mainly. Over the next probably 2-3 weeks or so, should start seeing other flowers coming through that it loves, feeding on things like ground ivy and bugle, with these long flowers that it can get this kind of proboscis into, feeding on the nectar in there. So it's worth people keeping an eye out. It's not a great morning here. It's quite cool. It's quite overcast and cloudy here now. They tend to emerge on the sunnier mornings. And last week was stunning. All week was absolutely stunning. So we had bee flies, and we must have had 4 or 5 in the garden here, which is quite unusual. Usually 1, 2 at most really is what I've seen. But last week I had 4 of them together. So yeah, it was absolutely brilliant. I had a fantastic view watching that. So one of my big passions, those of you who know me, is looking for birds' nests. And this is one of the reasons why when spring comes, I absolutely love it. It's the time when birds are starting to nest. I don't know if you can hear it. There's a dunnock singing away right here now. There's a robin at the back of me. There's a blackbird as well. But they're all advertising territory, of course. They're all keeping away the other males, and they're all trying to attract a mate as well now. And they're building nests. A lot of these will be fairly early nesters. And so I go out and about looking for nests this time of year. And it all comes, I think, from when I was a little lad, particularly going out and about with my Tide granddad. He was a big influence on my life. He was a cracking old man. He lived to be 96. He smoked rollies every day of his life and drank a bottle of Watley's Pale Ale most days of his life as well, and lived to be a grand old age. And he was a poacher. He was a real poacher. And he used to take me as a little lad under his wing. We used to go out, and he was the one who taught me how to find nests. We used to go along the hedgerows, and then he'd say, go and have a look in that bush there, Iolo, see if you can find a nest. I think there might be a nest in there. And I'd go in and I'd have a look, and I'd say, I can't find anything tight. And he'd say, well, listen, lie on the floor and look up. And because when you lie down and then look up, you're looking up at the air, so you can see a bulky shape, this dark shape. And I said, tight, there's a nest in here. He goes, right, okay. Do you know what it is? And I said, no, I don't. He said, have a look inside. And of course, I'd go up and I'd have a look in and I'd describe what I was seeing to him. Then he'd say, okay, do you know what it is now? I said, no, I don't. And he said, come here. And then we'd both step back. We'd wait 10, 15 minutes or so. Sure enough, whatever bird it was would work its way back onto that nest and incubate the eggs again. And that's how I learned. And then we'd move along and we'd go along, the next bit of hedge and the next bit of hedge. And we'd find robins and dunnocks and blackbirds and song thrushes and all that. So my fascination comes from when I was a really, really little lad going out with my Tide. And I've been out and about some of the lanes around me here. Have been self-isolating for the last 2 weeks or so, but it gives you plenty of opportunity because there's lots of nests out and about. And because the leaf, the leaf is late appearing up here, you can also find some of the older nests from last year as well. And this is the first one that I found is this nest here. This is one I found in a hedgerow, and then you look at it, and it's kind of the right size for a blackbird nest, really. But once you look inside, what you then see is that a blackbird will line inside the nest with grasses, usually dead grass, and what have you, before it lays its eggs. But this hasn't got that. The bird that built this nest hasn't lined the inside. It's bare earth. Now, this is an old nest, but a mate of mine took this picture just the other day, and that gives you an even better clue as to what's in there. You can see that in here now, not just have you got the bare earth, but you've also got the eggs themselves. You've got sky blue eggs with little black dots on them, and those two things should tell you straight away that actually this is the nest of a song thrush. Beautiful nest of a song thrush. So song thrushes, unlike the blackbirds, they don't actually line that nest. It's just bare earth in there. And of course, what that means is when the parents are incubating, the earth will warm up as well inside that nest, and that will help to warm up the eggs. And those eggs, sky blue eggs with little black dots on them, very different to a blackbird egg. Blackbird egg is more sort of greenish blue with brown mottling on them. I'm sure many people will have seen those. But that's a song thrush nest. It'll build that nest anywhere in bushes, fairly high up sometimes as well, especially when you get a small tree festooned with something like honeysuckle. Anywhere where there's a little bit of cover for them, that's where they will build that nest. Now, the next nest I was walking along is actually looking for a robin nest, and I've got a standoff with a robin down the road from me here, because I was down walking the lane last week and I saw the robin with a beak full of old leaves. Unfortunately, the robin saw me just as I saw it, and immediately it saw me, it opened its beak, it dropped all the leaves and then started singing away. And I'm sure it's mocking me. just looking at me saying, ha 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 ha. I saw you watching me, so I'm not going to go back to my nest and start building with these leaves. And that's the robin for you. They honestly, they're sneaky little so-and-sos. They really are. But while I was acting about, I also saw this. Now, it looks just like a little hole in a pile of leaves there. But if you go in a little bit, you'll see that that hole is an entrance to a nest. It's you can't see the nest very well at all. It's actually a wren's nest. And wrens will hide their nests remarkably well. They're really good nest builders. And the other thing about wrens is that they'll build several nests. The males will go out, they'll build anything 5, 6, 7, maybe sometimes even more nests than that. They build them in different locations within its territory. And then the female will come around and it'll have a look at all those nests. And eventually she's the one who'll decide, well, actually, do you know what? I don't like that one. I really don't like that one. That's the one I like. And that's the one that they'll then line the nest. And that's where she will then lay her eggs in. And this one is, you can see from the photos here, this one, it's not always an easy one to find. Wrens will tuck their nests right out the way. I've got a nest just over the way from me here that's tucked in an old tree root where a tree with the storms this winter was blown over. The root has come up and the nest has been tucked in there. And it can be really awkward, really difficult to find. But that's the wren's nest. And of course, if you see a wren's nest out in the open, it's like a little ball, like a small football with a little hole in it. It's got to be one of the coziest nests imaginable. Fantastic bird, fantastic nests. And I've said that I'm sitting here in my garden, and just away to the left is a dunnock singing away. Well, I've got a little video to show you here now, one more video to show you of this dunnock's nest, because where I'm sat here, the dunnock nest is maybe 3 meters away from me in a bush. And I videoed this, showing you exactly where that nest is. I go along, and the nest is at the top, very top of this bush. And this nest is already been built, it's already lined, and I checked it last week, a week ago. I haven't been back since. I thought I'd leave them well alone for maybe 9 or 10 days to let them lay their eggs. And when they lay these lovely sky blue, small sky blue eggs. And this is a typical dunnock nest. A lot of moss in there, a few twigs in there, lined with wool, lined with horsehair as well. And as I say, they will be laying sky blue eggs in that nest. And one of the things I should add here as well is that if any of you are out and about looking for nests, please keep disturbance to an absolute minimum, and also make sure that you pass all the information on these nests and the eggs and the chicks that are in there to the British Trust of Ornithology, to the BTO. They gather all this information. It all helps with the conservation of these birds. So that's absolutely vital stuff. But if there was an Olympic Games for nest building, I think the gold medal would have to go to this next nest. Let me show you first picture of this. This was one I found just 2 days ago, and this is in a fairly thick hedge just up the lane from me here, and this is a remarkable long-tailed tit nest. There's no nest on earth can rival that of a long-tailed tit, and even though there are no leaves on there, it's still pretty well camouflaged in that quite thick, quite dense hedgerow there. It's made up of a lot of moss in there, a lot of sheep's wool in there. It's got a few bits of lichen on the outside. And if you go in a little bit closer, you can see it's the size of a small rugby ball with a little hole towards the top end of it that the birds make their way in and out of. But the magic ingredient, I always think, with a long-tailed tit nest, well, if you think about it, it's not a big nest. And in there, they'll have laid maybe 5 eggs, maybe 6 eggs, and that's fine. You know, when they're incubating eggs, there's tons of room. But when those eggs hatch out and the chicks will be in there for nearly 2 weeks, well, when they're about 10 days old, there's not going to be much room in there. And so the long-tailed tit can't apply to the local council for an extension. It probably wouldn't get it from our local council here anyway. So what they do is when they build a nest, they gather together spider silk. I can see them sometimes on the wall of the house here, going up and down the bricks. And at first you're thinking, what are these birds doing? And you watch them and they're gathering spider silk and they weave that into that nest. And what it means is that when the chicks grow, the nest will expand. Isn't that absolutely amazing? And there we are, we think the human race, we're clever people, we've invented lycra. No, we haven't. Long-tailed tits invented lycra thousands of years ago. And that is the long-tailed tit. And the other fantastic thing about them is the number of feathers within each nest. If that nest is in quite a sheltered position, like this one is, it's in a fairly dense, fairly tall hedgerow, it can have anything up to about 1,500 feathers in that one nest. If that nest was in a more exposed position, they can have up to 2,000 feathers in that nest. Where on earth does a long-tailed tit find 2,000 feathers? Well, walking around, I've seen them demolish old nests of dunnocks, old nests of long-tailed tits, and just to get at those feathers there. And they'll gather those and they'll pack them into that nest. And I tell you one thing, if the Buddhists are right and I come back to this world as something else, I really wouldn't mind coming back to this world as a long-tailed tit chick, because there can't be a nicer, a more comfortable, a warmer nest than the long-tailed tit nest. So that's just a few bird nests there that I found out and about in the lanes around me over the last week or so while I've been self-isolating. And I would urge anyone and everyone, just go out. Obviously avoid people, but go out, have a look in the garden. A lot of people use different techniques to find nests. Some people will go around and they'll use a little stick to tap the hedgerow to see if a bird comes out. I tend to err on the side of caution. My method really is to sit somewhere with a nice view and just sit and watch and wait. And eventually you'll see either a changeover where one bird takes over from the other one, incubating those eggs, or later on, of course, they'll be feeding young, and that makes it that much easier because they'll be back and forth to and from that nest feeding the chicks. And as I said, please, 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 if you are going to do it, be careful. The birds have to come first. And please pass on all the information you gather to the British Trust of Ornithology, to the BTO. Right, I think it's time for the quiz now, to have the results of the quiz. Now, that one. Chris, any thoughts on that? Have we had anyone writing in?
I think somebody's come in with the right answer for that one. They've said it's a stingray's.
Do you know what? They are well done, whoever that was. That is absolutely spot on. And tragically, this is what killed the late, great Steve Irwin. This usually sits on the tail of the stingray in a sheath. If it's agitated in any way, then this is exposed and it can come up. And apparently what happened with Steve Irwin was that this went between two ribs straight into his heart. The stingray then, of course, tries to get away, and in doing so, it ripped his heart apart. So even had he been 2 seconds from the best hospital in the world, apparently it was too late for him. So that, yes, that's whoever got that, that's fabulous. Well done, you. That is a stingray's barb. With those, and it's a dangerous looking thing. It really is. But there you go. You shouldn't mess with these animals, should you? And Chris, there we are. The bird that commutes past my home every morning. What's that?
I think I know what it is, Iolo, but I'm going to dispute that it commutes past your home every morning, unless you've got a secret eagle in Wales there. I mean, I can't see it altogether too clearly, but it's got to be golden or white-tailed eagle. You're pulling my leg.
It's April Fool's Day. It's April Fool's Day.
Of course it is. Yeah.
I thought, Hey, well done, you. Spot on. Yeah, that's the tail feather from a sub-adult white-tailed eagle. That one there. And one more thing, right? I have to commend you too, because you're doing a brilliant job bringing wildlife into people's homes at a very difficult time. And I've watched all week. You've had great guests. You've been putting out all kinds of fantastic information. But there is a big but to this. I have been very, very disappointed, bitterly disappointed, right, by a lack of cake. So I am going to rectify that. Now, this is homemade rhubarb and strawberry crumble piled high with custard. As you can see, if you're going to have crumble, it's got to be thick crumble. It's got to be lots of custard as well. And I thought I'd rectify the one glaring omission from these broadcasts, and that is nobody has been eating cake, which I think is wrong. I think personally.
Iolo, thanks very much. You managed to squeeze in rugby, but only when you alluded to the shape of the long-tailed titnest being like a rugby ball. Top marks
Brilliant.
for not mentioning the Welsh rugby team at least 15 times in one comment. You did obviously expose your lycra fetish. And luckily, the viewers this morning are not going to get you, in the full glory that I've seen you in the Spring Watch caravan, demonstrating that lycra fetish.
That's our secret. You weren't supposed to mention that to anyone, Chris.
Ladies and gentlemen, young people, self-isolators, as I said before, the wonderfully Welsh, brilliant naturalist, Mr. Iolo Williams. Top work, Iolo. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much,
indeed.
Iolo. Enjoy your custard.
I will. Thank you both very much. Take care.
Well, we're running short bit of time today, so we're going to cut straight into our next guest. You may well know him as Mr. Vic Reeves. Shooting Stars, Smell of Reeves and Mortimer, those surreal comedies that have entertained us over the years. But Jim Moir, the real Jim Moir, is also a very serious artist. He's a great painter. He's done a number of books. He's had a number of exhibitions. He's highly respected. He's got very arty mates, I've got to say, envious of some of his very arty mates. But he's also very, very keen on his birds. So it's not surprising that he's turned his artistic skills to the bird world. Let's take a look at some of Jim's work.
Here I am in my studio. This is where I paint all day long. Actually, with the coronavirus affecting us all, it's affected me a lot less than a lot of other people. So I'm grateful for that, because I spend a lot of my days in here in the studio painting. I don't get out to see the birds as much as I used to. But there's the latest, that's a great auk, which I'm really not that happy about. I can do more work on that. I went down to Dungeness recently to try and find some firecrests. And I couldn't find any, so I painted a massive one there. That's the latest one, the Dartford Warbler. I've gone for these really bold and very basic colours, which is not quite really... I mean, my style changes all the time, but I'm really enjoying doing this, and I'm using these pigment sticks to give these big bold colours. Come along over here. There's a bearded tit. A massive big bearded tit, which isn't actually a tit. And not really bearded either. It's got a kind of, moustache really, if you like. That was the first bird that I painted when I left art school in 1985. I did a copy of Fabricius's Goldfinch, really just like trying to work out how he painted and how to get this effect. And I've got this really brilliant effect here, and I've never really got it as good as that since. Here's some small ones. There's a Dartford Warbler, there's a swallow, and there's a kestrel, and there's Elton John. Follow me now. Oh look, that's some kind of, I don't know what it is. It's some kind of hawk that I was working on and I gave up on. But follow me out here, out of the studio and into the garden. There's lots of birds round here. In fact, the other day I saw a red kite, which is fairly rare in Kent. I mean, I know they're all over the Chilterns and everywhere, but around here you don't see them too often. Got the buzzards again, like there is everywhere. They're taking over, which I really like. And some more birds over here. That's my old studio. Here in the greenhouse, they're scattered around all over, as you can see. There's a bee eater, which I remember seeing when I was on holiday once in Spain, and there was a swimming pool there. It was out in the middle of the mountains, and then you would get the bee eaters swooping around. Then the rock swifts would take over, and then after that the bats. It was like an amazing aerial display, like your own air show every night, along with Rioja and Boccheroni. And in there is long-tailed tits. That's the bee that I saw in Spain, and they're the long-tailed tits that we've got over there at the bird station, which is I've built up to quite an extent, and we get, not on there now, but via the various seeds. Build it and they will come. That's what they say, and that's what's happened here. Goldfinches, greenfinches, all the tits. I like looking at the long-tailed tits, and I like to see the hierarchy. Anyway, so I've really got it pretty good here, and I feel sorry for a lot of other people. I'm sorry for me mum, who says to me the other day, have you seen a cold tit? And I said yes, and she can't get out of her flat, so it's quite miserable. Anyway, that's my world.
What a bloke. What a bloke. I love his art. I was once very fortunate enough to go on to Shooting Stars, and Jim, Vic, did a picture of me.
Did he?
He did, yes.
You got it?
Well, it's not tremendously flattering, but it's interesting.
Have you got it?
Yeah, I have got it. Yeah,
I think
I've got
we
it.
need to see this.
Of course I've got it.
I think we need to see it.
Yeah, and okay, I'll get it out tomorrow.
Yeah?
Yeah. And a coot as well, and a coot. So I'm really pleased to have those in my collection. And check out the rest of Vic's art, of course, Jim's art, online, and look at the exhibitions that he's had. If you ever get a chance to go to one, they are truly superb.
I had no idea he was such a talented artist.
He's
Amazing.
a very talented artist, not just
Brilliant.
birds. His other art is amazing. There's a little bit that's like Basquiat, and there was a painting of his. I really wanted it once. I said, Jim, I really would like that painting, and then he sold it to someone else.
That's not very good.
Nah,
Wow.
It doesn't matter. I will find another of his that I really like. Yeah, I'd love to have one of his Basquiat type.
Yeah, beautiful.
Top bloke.
Beautiful thing.
All right.
Wow, Chris, yesterday, you gave me a mystery photograph, didn't you? Do you remember?
Oh yeah, the washing up
the
liquid.
washing up liquid, which I still dispute
Washing
because I
up.
still do at least half of the washing up, at least half. So I took a photo of something last night that clearly you're not familiar with.
Oh no. Go on.
Not only do we have a photo, but I've brought it out. Do you have any idea what this mysterious object is?
Let me have a look.
Have a good look. Have a feel of it. You can get a lot of information here from the handle. You get a lot of information from this bowl area.
I don't. Is it it's like a modified hammer of some kind, or is it a doorstop or something?
Tell you what, tonight I'm going to teach you how to use it.
Cheeky monkey. Listen, since you were in nappies, I have been preparing you food.
Yes, in the microwave and in the oven.
What do you mean in the microwave? You're besmirching my culinary reputation in front of the nation.
I'm going to challenge you to cook a meal, and I'm going to take a photo of it, and you're not allowed to use the microwave, and you can only use the oven if I approve that it's for reasonable use. Do you take up the challenge?
Of course.
Yeah?
I'm wise to any challenge.
Tonight it is then. I'll send you a photo of what Chris
That's your pizza. Bing. Right.
The worrying thing is that was 100% more.
Okay, we're just going to show you a brief clip now because we need to get out of this section as quickly as possible before harm is done, not only to reputations but also to physical form. And take a look at this, because Richard Taylor-Jones, who is a cameraman who lives in Kent, has been fortunate enough to encounter a white-tailed eagle. Now, the white-tailed eagles have been recently reintroduced to the Isle of Wight. We know that as these birds are being satellite tagged, they've been moving around. But it appears that Richard was lucky enough to catch a glimpse of one and film it, I have to say, down in Kent. We're going to be telling you more about this tomorrow because there are other sightings of these birds that are clearly moving around the south of England at the moment. Well worth looking out for. I've got to say, they have flown over the Houses of Parliament. They've spent quite a bit of time in Oxford, so if you're not on the Isle of Wight and the south coast, there's no reason why you shouldn't keep your eyes peeled for these.
It's an
more
amazing,
of that tomorrow.
It's an amazing relocation project, isn't it?
Yeah.
Fantastic success story. So yeah, we wanted to spend a bit more time on that, so we'll go into more detail on it tomorrow. But for now, I'm going to wrap up with a bit of audience participation. Now, we've had a few things sent in. If you remember yesterday, I asked you to tell me about your signs of spring. What does spring mean to you? We've had some really lovely responses. So this photo was sent to us on Instagram by Country Home and the Dogs. Says signs of spring for them are primroses sprouting in pavement cracks, the pungent wild garlic sprouting in the wood, the wild cherry getting ready to burst into flower, marsh marigolds and wild anemones by the brook. Now, doesn't that sound like an idyllic scene?
It sounds like a recipe for spring.
A recipe for spring, exactly that. So some beautiful images there. We were also sent in this nest box. Now, a few days ago, we did a segment on nest boxes, and that actually inspired young Luke and Alice, who are 8 and 12 years old, to go and make a nest box for themselves. And it is fantastic.
Yes.
I'm glad you put it up. And I've heard rumours that there might already be something moving in there. So top work. Well done, you two. That's great. And then I just wanted to give one more shout out to Sue Luthery. She's recovering from the coronavirus. She spent 8 days continuously coughing. I want to say we hope you have a very speedy recovery and that you're looking after yourself and staying strong in this difficult period of self-isolation. But she sent us that she said to us that she's been looking out of her bedroom window throughout this time with her binoculars. And this afternoon she saw her first swallow. Which
Wow.
is a fantastic thing. She says it's the best tonic ever and spring has sprung in Wiltshire. So what an amazing thing. Even if you're in your bedroom, get those binoculars out and look out of your windows and you can connect with nature that way as well.
Top work. Stay safe, everyone. Let's just get Skull of the Day over with. This one is so easy. We're not going to spend too much time on it. Look at the size of that powerful bill. It is, of course, the seabird. I mentioned it's doing very well in the UK. Some of the colonies greatly expanding. This is the skull of the northern gannet, the gannet. Now, there is a southern gannet. As I mentioned, you find them in the southern hemisphere. You get those in South Africa for sure. I think you also get them in New Zealand. I also mentioned the architecture at the back of the skull. This is because it's got a very powerful, strong neck. Remember, this is a diving bird. It throws itself into the well, it propels itself into the water at speeds of up to 30 to 40 miles an hour. And as a consequence of that, it needs very strong musculature at the back of the head here. So yes, Skull of the Day, gannet. Did people get it right, Beast?
Lots of people got it right, actually. So we've got Gavin, Hope, Russell, Julie, Gemma on Facebook, on Twitter, Karina, Paula, James, Mostly Wild, David, YouTube, Shane as well. So well done, everyone got it right. A lot of people did. A lot of people got that. So top work. Well done. That's your phrase, top work. I picked it up.
You've picked up
Oh
that.
no.
We're almost out of time. What can people be
We are
doing?
almost up. Well, a friend of mine, Sophie Paval, has actually organised something quite fun to entertain us all tonight at 8 p.m. If you go onto her Instagram, her name is Sophie Paval, you can take part in a Nature's Pub quiz. Yes, I mean, we're all missing pub quizzes. I know I am. So you can take part and send in all your answers and get involved. Then it's going to be a really good fun night. I know we're going to take part, aren't we?
We are. We're ferocious. Well, I'm ferociously competitive. So if I don't win, I'll be storming off of Instagram in a huff. There'll be no doubt about that. But Sophie Paval, Instagram, 8 p.m. tonight. Nature Pub quiz. Got to be worth joining in. Tomorrow, the one and only Hannah Stitful will be joining us. I think she's doing Make and Do.
I think so. She's going to be showing us what you can do in your gardens to help invite nature in and give it a home over the springtime.
Okay, see you tomorrow, 9 o'clock. Stay safe.
Have a good day. Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.